Mr. Lucio Valerio Sarandrea, a Child Protection Specialist at UNICEF East Asia and Pacific Regional Office. Thank you. Let's wait a couple of more minutes.
Lucia, in the meantime, could you maybe quickly introduce the child safe activity card before we start? Thank you.
Yes, David, you read my mind. I would like to start with some fundamental rule of the game and introduce this. I hope that you will start seeing my screen. I see that, yes, you're nodding. Some basic rules of the games, and in order to help ensuring that this activity is child safe, that is our cornerstone worry and I would say even commitment. Considering different situation of children, the background noises and other elements that might affect children participation in the webinar. So the rules are respecting, listening, and equally valuing the voices of children and adults, ruled for this meeting and afterwards. Using effective children-friendly and inclusive communication with children. Not using any language, images, emojis, and suggestions that can be inappropriate, offensive, abusive, discriminatory, sexually provocative, or even culturally insensitive. In order to have everyone informed consent of children and their parents, guardians prior to take or sharing children's photos or videos. So not taking and sharing screenshots of the online activity without the consent of all the children in the photo. If with consent and publish material with children's images, ensuring that children are portrayed as human beings, right holders and partners in the photos and videos. And of course, not publishing the child last name or any other personal information that could be used to identify a child's location. And considering that sexual abuse and exploitation of children and sexual activity with a child with or without child consent is a gross misconduct at all times, not acting in ways intended or which discriminate, cause shame, humiliate, belittle or degrade any child or children, or otherwise perpetrate any form of emotional abuse, or not asking personal contacts of a child without whom you are in contact with a work-related context unless there has been explicit authorization from the organizer to do so for business purposes. So I hope that all of you will keep in mind these basic rules of the game as we go. I see that the number of participants has increased to the point that I would suggest now to start up the official part of the meeting. So excellencies, distinguished speakers, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, and friends. First of all, as we say now, good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, because I understand that many of you are spread across the globe. Really warm welcome to all you for joining us for this launch of this event called Get Everyone in the Picture. There is a snapshot of the progress midway through the Asian and Pacific Civil Registration and Vital Statistic Decade. As a part of this event, we're going to focus on progress in Southeast Asia. As I stated before, my name is Lucio Valerio Sarandrea, and I'm working for UNICEF Child Protection Specialist. And I will moderate this event. A little bit of reminder to everyone on how to make this conversation as effective as possible. Keep your phone in mute in this entire event. If you want to ask questions to the speakers, I invite to use the chat box and the question and answer session that will be at the end of this event. And provide your name and the organization to whom you are working for, and then to whom the question is specifically asked. Also, if you're having connection problems, we advise to turn down your video, because we found this very effective. The other point is by the red dot that you will see on the screen means that we are recording this event and we'll make it available online. And then what is most important is that we are really lucky, as now we will be hearing from Abdul Rahim, who joined the Children and Youth Consultations on CRVS recently organized by our partner CRC Asia and World Vision in collaboration with UNICEF. And please ensure that you adhere to the child safeguarding policies that I stressed before, and to have a very constructive and effective meeting. So without further ado, I will pass the floor for the presentation to Mrs. Nazira, and there should be a video now being launched about her presentation.
No, Miss Nazaria is in the meeting.
Nazaria. Sorry, Nazaria. Sorry, Nazaria. Go ahead, dear, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Lucio. Good morning, Excellencies, presenters and colleagues. On behalf of the Regional Steering Group for CRVS in Asia and the Pacific, it is my pleasure to welcome you to the launch of the Getting Everyone in the Picture report, a snapshot of progress midway through the Asia and Pacific Civil Registration and Vital Statistics Decade. As Vice Chair of the Regional Steering Group for CRVS, it has been my privilege to see the activities countries are undertaking to meet their national targets for the CRVS Decade. Since the beginning of the CRVS Decade in 2015, countries have made impressive strides in improving their national CRVS systems. Countries in the Southeast Asia sub-region are increasing registration coverage and producing vital statistics from registrations data to inform policy. We are also seeing closer links between national civil registration and identity management systems. Throughout the first half of the decade, we saw many improvements and experienced a collaborative spirit where countries learned from one another to address common challenges. This includes developing and implementing new technologies to expand registration coverage, as well as training key stakeholders to ensure compliance with international standards and many other activities. The fundamental principles behind CRVS are also in line with the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development Goals. SDGs are a universal call for action to end poverty, promote inclusiveness and well-being of the people, protect the planet, and ensure that all people enjoy peace and prosperity with the objective of leaving no one behind. A well-functioning civil registration and vital statistics systems play an important role directly and indirectly in monitoring and achieving SDG goals to get everyone in the picture. However, many challenges exacerbated by the recent pandemic nevertheless persist in the face of our collective improvements. For example, many countries have yet to conduct assessments of inequalities related to CRVS, meaning they lack the information on marginalized communities necessary to ensure universal coverage. And although many countries in Southeast Asia are collecting registration data and publishing vital statistics reports, some are still struggling to produce high-quality data meant for informed policy. The COVID-19 pandemic presents challenges to countries of which the registration of birth and death is not considered as essential services. In Malaysia, efforts are undertaken to get vital events registered and no one is left behind. As a statistician myself, I oversee Malaysia production of vital statistics based on civil registration data. The publication of vital statistics in Malaysia, for instance, for birth and death, is published quarterly, and marriage and divorce is published annually by the Department of Statistics. Vital statistic publication was first published in 1963, and quarterly demographic statistics was first published in 2017. Meanwhile, marriage and divorce statistics was first published in 2018. In Malaysia, relentless effort has been undertaken to improve the quality of CRVS through various mechanisms, such as enhanced collaborations with stakeholders, which include the Ministry of Home Affairs, Ministry of Health, the National Registration Department, and the State's Religious Department, as well as having better estimates and evaluations. The snapshot report being launched today will allow us to tailor future activities to address the remaining challenges, direct funding into areas needing specific attention, and enable stakeholders to build off the momentum created during the first half of the decade. As Vice Chair of the Regional Steering Group, it is also important to recognize the information being published will help guide us in our role as custodians for the CRVS Decade and respond accordingly to feedback from the country data being presented. Countries can make this report as a report card in evaluating and achieving the CRVS Decade. In conclusion, the sub-regional launch of this snapshot report is an important step in building a comprehensive approach to the second half of the CRVS Decade. Over the coming months, the Regional Steering Group will lead the preparations for the second Ministerial Conference on CRVS to be held in November this year. The conference will be important to build further momentum so we can work together to get everyone in the picture. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank ESCAP, the Secretariat, members of the Regional Steering Group, member countries, all partners, and each and everyone that have contributed to the work in getting everyone in the picture. Thank you very much. Over to you, Lucio.
Thank you very much, Nazaria, for this very warm welcome and this very important word that put at the center also the Sustainable Development Goals and leaving no one behind. Thank you very much. I think that we will come back also throughout the presentations. So now I will give the floor for the official opening remarks to the ESCAP Executive Secretary, Mrs. Armida Salsiah Alisjahbana, that she's Under Secretary General of the United Nations and, as I said, the Executive Secretary of ESCAP, that will deliver her opening remarks. Unfortunately, she cannot be present at the event, but instead we'll have a video that has been pre-recorded. I would like to invite my colleagues to play the video. Thank you.
Distinguished delegates, dear colleagues, welcome to this sub-regional launch of the report, Getting Everyone in the Picture, a snapshot of progress midway through the Asia-Pacific Civil Registration and Vital Statistics, or CRVS Decade. In 2014, in recognition of the role civil registration and vital statistics play in supporting development, governments and development partners came together to concentrate efforts on improving CRVS systems. We collectively articulated the shared vision that by 2024, all people in Asia and the Pacific will benefit from universal and responsive CRVS systems that facilitate the realization of their rights and support good governance, health, and development. The report shows that the Asia-Pacific region is on the right path to achieving universal and responsive CRVS systems, although we still have a lot of work ahead of us. We will meet again this year in November for the second Ministerial Conference on CRVS in Asia and the Pacific. At ESCAP, we are delighted that 12 organizations have agreed to co-organize the second Ministerial Conference with us. And many of these partners are also here today and have organized this sub-regional lounge with ESCAP. Considering the profound development implication of CRVS, it is no surprise that many development partners are keen to support countries in their endeavor to improve their CRVS systems. Distinguished delegates, each sub-region in Asia and the Pacific faces their own set of development challenges. This diversity is reflected in the civil registration and vital statistic systems across the region. I'm aware that each of the ESCAP sub-regions are improving their CRVS systems in very distinct contexts. But at the same time, some challenges cut across borders and can be found in many countries at a similar level of development. This diversity spans, for example, managing registration of remote communities in Bhutan to outer islands in Kiribati. It also relates to establishing new digital systems to make it easier for families to register their loved ones in countries as diverse as Cambodia and Pakistan. We also note that civil registration is providing the foundational building block for e-government in the Republic of Korea and Malaysia. Many countries are struggling to reach universal registration of births and deaths. In my home country, Indonesia, efforts are underway to improve access to civil registration documents for populations affected by natural hazards or individuals living in remote or border areas, highlighting the need to make specific efforts to ensure that no one is left behind. Clearly, civil registration and vital statistics is fundamental to advance the Sustainable Development Goals across Asia and the Pacific. However, the challenges are many, and the support needed can vary from specific technical issues to larger overhauls of the entire civil registration and vital statistics ecosystem. Therefore, coordination and specialized skills are key to success. Distinguished delegates, in this context, ESCAP is proud of the strong partnership on CRVS amongst governments and development organizations in the region. Today, you will hear more about the progress, opportunities, and remaining challenges on civil registration and vital statistics in your sub-region. I'm pleased to recognize that each sub-region is represented on the Regional Steering Group for CRVS in Asia and Pacific, and the leaders of the group will be supporting the discussions to take place during this event. You will also get a chance to hear about the improvements made to CRVS systems from some of the participants who have led these processes and learned from their insights. I'm sure you will leave this sub-regional lounge with renewed insights to guide country-level progress in achieving universal and responsive CRVS systems. In closing, I would like to encourage you to browse the microsite and download a copy of the report. It is a true testament to the will of governments and commitments of partners to ensure everyone in Asia and Pacific gets in the picture. I thank you.
Okay, well, very encouraging words, and I'm very pleased to hear strong commitment at the highest level and recognition on how important is CRVS, not only for the Southeast Asia, but also for the entire Asian Pacific region. At this stage, I think that we need to go to the core and most interesting part beyond the future presentations of this event. That is the very much presentation of the report. And then I'm pleased to invite Mrs. Petra Narmias, Chief of the Population Social Statistics section of the ESCAP Statistics Division, to present the very findings of the report from the Southeast Asia perspective. Petra, it's over to you.
Thank you. Can I just confirm that you can see my screen?
I do. If you can, it would be good if you could enlarge to the single slide.
I'm just about to do that.
Perfect.
Okay, thank you very much, Lucio. Good afternoon. Good morning, fellow colleagues. On behalf of ESCAP, it is my pleasure to share with you the findings of the Getting Everyone in the Picture report, a snapshot of progress midway through the Asian and Pacific Civil Registration and Vital Statistics Decade. Since the beginning of the decade, in 2015, countries have made impressive strides in improving the capacity of their national CRVS systems. Today, we have a chance to zoom in on some of the improvements and existing challenges in our corner of the world. It is great to see so many colleagues joining today, and the snapshot report will be a good starting point for our community to address these challenges before the end of the CRVS decade. The findings that are presented here and in the report are based on questionnaires sent to countries at the end of 2019. 45 of the 62 ESCAP members responded in 2019 and 2020, and 8 out of 11 countries in Southeast Asia. Many of you here today have been involved in responding to these, and we sincerely thank you for all your efforts and inputs. You can access the report by using the link. Please do have a look and browse the microsite. There is a lot of information in there and some nice country examples from Southeast Asia and beyond. In 2014, in recognition of the role civil registration and vital statistics play in supporting development efforts, governments and their relevant civil society partners came together at the 2014 Ministerial Conference on CRVS in Asia and the Pacific to concentrate efforts on improving CRVS systems. Together, they articulated the shared vision for the region that by 2024, all people in Asia and the Pacific benefit from universal and responsive CRVS systems that facilitate the realization of their rights and support good governance, health, and development. To support this vision, a regional action framework was endorsed with 3 goals, 15 targets, 7 action areas, as well as 8 implementation steps for countries to follow while improving their national CRVS systems. At the beginning of the decade, targets were established to monitor progress towards universal and responsive CRVS systems, facilitating the realization of rights and supporting good governance, health, and development. These targets are nationally set, and countries in Southeast Asia chose very ambitious targets. As you can see, however, most countries are still to achieve their targets. The targets which were achieved by most countries are related to the delivery of certificates for registered births and deaths, and, to a lesser extent, the production of vital statistics from civil registration records. The other targets, especially on birth and death registration and quality of cause of death data, have been achieved only by very few countries, and the rest of this presentation will focus on these targets. Registering birth is particularly important since it can help access human rights such as education, healthcare, and social services. It also serves as the foundation of one's legal identity. As such, it has been the object of much focus from countries and partners since the beginning of the decade to ensure no one is left behind. These efforts are paying off, with many countries seeing increases in their registration completeness. This graph presents the evolution of birth registration completeness. In other words, the percentage of the total number of births that are registered within 1 year between the beginning of the decade in 2014 and the midterm in 2018. Important progress is seen in Laos PDR, Cambodia, and the Philippines, thanks to regular efforts to improve their CRVS systems. 2 countries do not appear on this graph, Indonesia and Timor-Leste. They have, however, conducted in recent years massive campaigns for birth registration of their population. However, The data they submitted was not comparable to that of other countries, since it included not only registration of newborns, but also of older children and adults. An indicator of particular focus for countries and development partners is the percentage of children under 5 that have had their birth registered. Births need to be registered early in the life of children. Otherwise, the lack of registration can be an obstacle to access services. Important progress has been made in the region since 2012, but around 10 million, or 1 in 6 children, remain unregistered in Southeast Asia. 2/3 of these children live in Indonesia, where children from poorer families or marginalized regions are more at risk of being excluded. But excluded groups remain in all countries. Indeed, in 4 countries of Southeast Asia, more than 1 in 4 children under 5 has not had their birth registered. Death registration, compared to birth registration, might offer fewer incentives for the population, since it has less direct uses. Nonetheless, it is very important for families, as it can allow them to get burial permits or to settle inheritance, but also for government and for statistics, since it retires someone's legal identity and can be used for measurement of all-cause mortality, among others. Death registration completeness is therefore lower than births in most countries, and the gap between highest and lowest completeness is more important. Still, most countries are seeing increases in death registration, including significant scale-ups in Cambodia, Laos PDR, and Timor-Leste. Nevertheless, at the current pace, it is unlikely some countries will be able to achieve universal death registration by the end of the decade in 2024. The importance of the recording of causes of death has become more apparent than ever in the crisis we are currently facing. If reliable and timely data can be produced for all deaths, this data can then be used for public health policies, for monitoring, planning, or emergency response. The recording and coding of these causes should ideally follow the international standard classification of diseases and related health problems, otherwise known as the ICD. Southeast Asia is facing several challenges regarding the recording of this data. First, not all deaths are taking place in health facilities or with the attendance of a medical practitioner, thus meaning there is a chance that no cause of death will be recorded using a medical certificate of cause of death. And even when deaths do have a medically certified cause of death, this cause might not be coded as per the ICD. This is the case in a number of countries in Southeast Asia, such as Timor-Leste and Laos PDR, where ICD coding is currently applied only in a few hospitals and gradually being rolled out at the national level. Even coded as per the ICD, this information may be either too limited or not available to accurately classify the cause of death due to the lack of training of physicians in filling out the medical certificates of cause of death. If that is the case, the cause of death may be allocated what is known as an ill-defined code. These are codes existing within ICD, but which are not specific enough and thus not useful for health purposes. An example of this is a code known as old age, which does not provide useful information. In Cambodia, Indonesia, and Thailand, more than 1 in 5 deaths recorded by the health sector received an ill-defined code. In the region, the Philippines is a good example of efforts to improve the quality and timeliness of mortality statistics. With the help of partners, the Philippines Statistical Authority has managed to shorten the vital statistics production time while increasing data quality. This was done through collaboration, training, and the recourse to digital tools. Producing vital statistics from civil registration records is critical to produce timely, accurate, and cost-effective statistics on vital events, including on causes of death. This importance is reflected in the 2030 agenda, with 67 indicators benefiting from CRVS data. As countries improve their civil registration rates, they have more opportunities to use civil registration records for vital statistics. 4 countries with high birth and death completeness reported using civil registration for vital records for vital statistics: Brunei Darussalam, Malaysia, Philippines, and Thailand. At least 4 countries are still to do so. It should be noted that in the region, only Timor-Leste has produced a vital statistics report to provide detailed analysis of demographic indicators and of the performance of the civil registration system itself. Recently, Malaysia used the experience it had acquired in the production of vital statistics to continue the publication of estimates of the number of live events when the pandemic had stopped people from registering them. At the beginning of the decade, countries agreed on a set of 8 implementation steps to help shaping the way to universal registration. Many of them have since been implemented, for example, through the recent adoption of a national CRVS strategy in Indonesia, or the establishment of coordination mechanisms in most countries. One of the steps, however, remains an outlier: inequality assessments. Universal registration means 100%, and assessing inequalities, even in countries with very high registration completeness, is critical to ensure no one is left behind. Based on this observation, ESCAP has started supporting more countries in the assessment of their inequalities. Southeast Asia stands out in this step, with 3 countries already having assessed inequalities or made specific provisions to address them in their national CRVS strategy: Thailand, Vietnam, and Indonesia. While these countries are still to get everyone in the picture, it provides a positive example for the region to actively work for the inclusion of marginalized groups in CRVS systems. All in all, the assessment of the CRVS systems at the midterm of the decade has shown that the recognition of the importance of CRVS has increased in the region since the beginning of the decade. In turn, CRVS systems are now more comprehensive and robust. However, many challenges remain to achieve universal registration by the end of the decade. The crisis we are currently facing has proven to be an additional challenge in this way, while also highlighting the critical importance of this subject. It is with these lessons in mind that countries will gather in November for the 2nd Ministerial Conference on CRVS in Asia and the Pacific to review the progress made and map the challenges on the road to universal registration. And I'd like to thank you all for your attention, and I'll hand back to our moderator.
Thank you very much, Petra. Very interesting presentation. And it shows lots of very clear fundamental points to all of us that it is an issue that absolutely birth registration cannot be understated. And gathering experience and recommendation of children and youth on issues to CRVS is in this context absolutely critical to ensure that the inclusion of the voice of the children in addressing the remaining challenges is taken care. And then from January 2021 to April this year, the ESCAP and Child Rights Coalition Asia, World Vision, and UNICEF have organized country-level children and youth consultation that they were followed also by a regional forum on youth and CRVS in the Asia and the Pacific, which took place on May 29th. Now, I'm extremely happy to invite Abdul Rahim to tell us more about the key findings from the consultations. Abdul Rahim is a 14-year-old student that loves playing the guitar and is a strong advocate on children's rights and a voice of a voiceless youth. Or actually, maybe what I would like to rephrase is that children do have a voice, but it's more on us to listen to children and not to turn a deaf ear to children. And the last consideration that I will have before passing the floor to Abdul Rahim is to keep in mind that children and youth are not only the future of our countries, but are mostly the present and the future of our country. So we should consider them as today, not as tomorrow. So Abdul Rahim, the floor is yours.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So good day to each and everyone, to our speakers. Thank you, Mr. Lucia, for introducing me. So once again, I am Abdul Rahim. Am I audible? Am I audible? Okay,
Yes, very well.
Okay, so I am Abdul Rahim Perez Anudin, 14 years old, from Zamboanga City, Philippines. So speaks here before you because I am the representative of Boses ng Kabataan, a child and youth-led organization here in our country. So it has stated in the United Nations Conventions on the Rights of the Child that every child in this world has the right to fulfill their needs and necessity, including their rights to survive, to be developed, to be protected, and to participate in every situations, concerns that can affect the lives of every children. In connection with this, the ESCAP created a plan on how to gather the children and youth and to bring the voice of every children and youth about the civil registration and vital statistics. This program aims to know the situation of the children and youth all over the world to fulfill their right to a name and nationality, such as allowing them to have a free birth registration, bearing their identity and citizenship of certain country. So UNESCAP gathered the children and youth around Southeast Asia to join and represent the sub-regional forum for civil registration and vital statistics, to witness and enable us, delegates, the opportunity to participate and be part of meaningful solution on CRVS. As a youth leader from the Philippines, I am one of the most lucky and grateful individual to have chosen to join this conference. And now, I am speaking in front of you and delivering this message to each member of child and youth delegates. We need to stand as one to fulfill our rights. So during the CRVS Sub-Regional Forum, there were 100 participants coming from countries in Southeast Asia and the Pacific. We may be presenting different countries, but we seek one purpose. We aim for one goal, and that is to challenge the duty bearers and speak out as one voice to provide appropriate programs to those who are directly affected on this issue. In our discussion on the plenary, we have discussed different issues and struggles that the children and youth are experiencing in their country, such as the expensive payment for the registration of birth certificates, marriage certificates, and death certificates. The lacking of facilities, specifically in rural areas and places where there are limited employees to cater to the needs of the people. There are also citizens who already have their birth certificates upon birth, but there were mistakes in the spelling of their names, date of birth, and other personal informations. So moreover, the child and youth delegate have also identified suggestions and recommendations to fulfill the rights of the child to a name and nationality, especially on civil registration and vital statistics. And these are the following. The first is to lessen payments in getting birth certificates, marriage certificates, and death certificates. Second is to add more facilities, especially in remote areas, and more workers to cater the needs of every citizens in every country in updating and getting their birth certificate, marriage certificates, and also the death certificates. In addition, we also want to conduct a consultation about the civil registration and vital statistics and to help every citizen understand the broader meaning of the said topic. To conduct training for registration officers about the civil registration and vital statistics, highlighting the importance of accurate information with its proper implementation of the process. This is to ensure that the officers are well equipped with skills and acknowledge to avoid their errors in the process of creating certificates. The concerned agencies must also evaluate the efficiency of the progress and make necessary intervention immediately. Intervention with registration offices to lessen the mistakes and typographical errors in birth registration, marriage registration, and death registration or death certificates. Furthermore, we are addressing these recommendations to the government, hoping to receive a response on said issues and enable these countries come up with a mechanism to help the children and youth in far-flung areas to process these documents. In conclusion, as I observed during our consultation, that even we are representing different countries, our main goal is to voice out the struggles and come up with concrete recommendations to help the government give a better understanding on the realities on the grounds, especially for the people who do not have birth certificates and other important certificates. With this, I am thankful and much privileged to be part of this consultation and to be given the opportunity to share my experiences before you and contribute to better the lives of the children from our generation to generation. Because I do believe that we, the young people, are the future leaders and key to a successful nation. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your statement. And I would just like to pick up your words and being a stronger encouragement. You're not only the future leaders, but you are also the present leaders. And so thank you very much. Well done. And very inspiring. So this moment I would like to pass the floor and having the distinct pleasure to invite Mr. Muhammad Cholifani, Director of Population and Social Insurance, Financial Services and State-owned Enterprises at the Ministry of National Development Planning and of Indonesia, the Bappenas, to present efforts made in Indonesia to improve their CRVS system since the beginning of the decade. Mr. Muhammad Cholifani, the floor is yours for your presentation.
Thank you, Lucio. Could you hear my voice?
Very well, loud and clear.
Okay. Wait a moment, please. I would like to share my presentation. Okay, sorry, I think Mr. David, could you help me to display my presentation because of I think something.
Yes. Give me a second.
Yeah, could you? Distinguished speakers, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, today I would like to present the 6 minute. Please wait a moment to display my presentation. Okay, here is I would like to explain about the progress of the CP registration and vital statistic in Indonesia. Next, please. You know that the Indonesia, the challenge and barrier because of the many island and then the largest population and also the COVID-19 is the also large number of cases in South Asia. Then it is the challenge and also the barrier. If you know that the some people in Indonesia they have also like the you can look here in the right hand side, they do not understand the process of birth certificate. It's also the 10%, and then in the 8% they do not feel that birth certificate is important, is necessary. It is also the barrier for us, and also the prohibited cost, like the transportation cost from the community to the village office, etc. So it means that the people in Indonesia with special condition is also face more salience, unreached and unidentified. And also the rural and remote area have lower coverage of the birth certificate. Next, please. So because if you see here, we have the milestone from the 2006, the law for population administration, and amended in 2013. This is the our first milestone, and then the important one is the 2019. At the time, the government regulation have already launched, and also the presidential decree number 62 year 2019 on national CRVS. I think it's very important. And then the implementation, the first implementation of the CRVS the presidential decree is was happened in 2020. That is the population census. The population census was synchronized between census and CRVS data. I think it's very important about this. And then in the 2021, last week, so the national team have been already completed, and we have the working group to accelerate our administration and vital statistic. Next. And in terms of the CRVS in development planning, in long-term national planning and also midterm national planning, we mandated that the CRVS is very important for the policy in our country, and also the guarantee for population right and social protection to support the CRVS and also population administration. Next, please. And here is that I mentioned before, there are the presidential regulation 2019 to accelerate population administration and also development of vital statistics. It's very important because we have the 4 goals. The first goal is how to accelerate the population registration, civil registration, and also development of vital statistics with continuously, universal, and inclusive. And the second objective is realizing the ownership of complete and update population document to all Indonesian residents and citizens abroad as well. And then the third objective is provided the accurate, complete, and timely vital statistic is very important. And then the last one is specific emphasizing on reaching the most vulnerable population. That is the 4 objective of President regulation that specifically to accelerate population administration and also development vital statistics. Next, please. Then for the accelerate the national strategy for the CRVS target. So we have 14 ministries that involve the national team. I think you can look here in the logo for the 14 ministries. This is the national team that consists of the several ministries and also institution. Next, please. In the CRVS national strategy, we have 5 strategy, and then the 5 strategy in the national strategy divided from the 2019 to 2024. For example, for the first strategy is expansion the rich population. You can look here to all the Indonesian citizenship, including in the outside, abroad. And then the second one strategy is awareness for the people to record population event and important event. And then the third strategy is to accelerate ownership population, mainly in vulnerable and special group. It is very important. And also the fourth strategy is how we can develop the vital statistic. And also the last strategy is the coordination, collaboration among the ministries and then provincial level, city government, and also stakeholder. That is the our target in the till 2024. And then the last slide, please. And here is our target. So in 1924, in terms of, for example, you can look here in the birth certificate. For the birth certificate, age 0 to 5 years, baseline in 2017, mentioned here more than 75% coverage, and hopefully, of course, our target in 2024 is 100%. Universal. And then the in terms of birth certificate, its ownership for resident 0 to 17, I think is bigger the number, and then also the target in 2024 achieved that 100. And I think we are also the how we can say the challenge for the deposit certificate, death certificate, and also death identification. I think we are still moving there to achieve the target. Hopefully, in the because of we have national team for the accelerate the civil statistic, we can do the target based on the time. I think that's all for my presentation. Thank you for all of you, and back to the moderator. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you very much for the impressive account of the work that has been done in Indonesia. And I look forward also to hear more at the Ministerial Conference that will take place in November. So we're moving now to the last presentation before the discussion. And by way of introduction, in 2014 at the Ministerial Conference on CRVS, it was agreed that goal 1 is one of the universal registration births and deaths is a priority. And universal means all events are registered, not just 99%. So assessing inequalities related to CRVS is absolutely essential to fulfill the promise of leaving no one behind. And our next speaker, that is Dr. Hathin Duk, is the Deputy Director General of the International Cooperation Department of the Ministry of Labor, Invalids and Social Affairs of Vietnam, and ASEAN Commission on the Promotion and Protection of Rights of Women and Children Representative on Children Rights. So he will now talk about efforts made in the region to reach out to marginalized and hard to reach populations. The floor is yours. No. Yes.
Can you hear me?
Yes, now yes, we do.
Okay, thank you very much. And sorry a little bit for the slow response sharing option. Can you see my presentation already? Okay.
Not yet. Now it's starting.
Thank you. And then back. Yes. Okay, thank you very much. Now we would like to share with you some of the more updated information from the activity of the ASEAN member states on the promoting and protecting the rights of women and children to legal identity. In fact, I'm also the ACWC rep, the ASEAN Commission on the Promotion and Protection of the Rights of Women and Children in ASEAN. And that's why I think I share with you some of the updated things that we have done from our side. And also, I'd like also to share some of the information from Vietnam on how to implement the issues of CRVS now. And you know that the ACWC, the commission is established in 10 years ago, and the mandate is it is an intergovernmental body that has mandate to promote and protect the human rights, fundamental rights of women and children. And we also work toward the protection of vulnerable and left behind people, including when they are undocumented or of their legal identity is clear. And the ICWC. Let me Vietnam. Yeah.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Could you could you make your presentation full screen? Yes, fantastic. Thank you.
And the ICWC, together with UNHCR, have co-facilitated the regional dialogue about ways to increase the recognition of legal identity of women and children, primarily through the extending of civil registrations since 2013, where we talk about the birth registration coverage, the access to identity documentation and prevention of statelessness. And through that one, since that one, we work together, organize so many activity, including the regional workshop on protecting the rights of nationality for women and children in the implementation of the CEDAW and CRC, and the ACWC-UNHCR potential partnership in 2013 to identify possible collaboration with regards to the rise of the nationality and common issues of concern. The workshop in 2013 kickstarted the discussion within the Commission and with relevant stakeholders in ASEAN in this regard. And we adopted a set of recommendations to undertake a regional study on issues of nationality of women and children in the region and how to further development could contribute to building the ASEAN community. This is the picture of that, the photo of that workshop in 2013. And we also organized regional workshop on consultations and promoting the rights to nationality for women and children in ASEAN in 2016 in Ho Chi Minh City, Vietnam, where we're discussing the issues of CRVS and recognize that the importance of legal identity to facilitate the inclusion and well-being of all women, children, and their family, and that's the mandate of ACWC. And we contribute, that also contribute to sustainable development, particularly for the vulnerable groups. And we also promote to do with the legal identity, including birth registration, documentation, including legal identity and nationality. And we also, from that one, we done a lot of activities at the national level for the research. And we organize a preparation workshop on promoting inclusion and sustainable development in building the ASEAN community to ensuring the recognition of legal identity of women and children in ASEAN. Between 2017 and 2019, the project undertakes research, develop national and regional capacity, and provide a platform for the ASEAN member states to share good practices in these areas. And in 2018, the activities focuses on the preparation of the draft regional research report based on the response received by all ASEAN member states. And it was for the first time when all 10 ASEAN member states fully discussed and participated in a study on nationality and statelessness. And this demonstrates a great achievements of project that also of the ICWC in contributing to ending statelessness. And the regional consultation workshop on these issues, the validations, comments, inputs to the draft regional report was organized in November 2018 in Đà Lạt, Vietnam. And it was for the first time where all 10 ASEAN members fully discussed and participated in a study on nationality, and that also contribute a lot to the issues of ending the statelessness. During 2019-2020, the activities focuses on the finalization of the draft regional report, research study report, and now the project's research has been concluded. And the launching of that was officially organized in November 2020 in Hanoi, Vietnam, under the chairmanship of Vietnam. And was the first time where all the 10 ASEAN member states fully discussed and participated in study that demonstrates great achievements of regional cooperation project and also of the ACWC in contributing to end statelessness and preventing it through the strengthened CRVS system. And for the case of Vietnam, we know that, this is taking into account of all of the specific context and background. Instead, the research examines the issue related to legal identity, especially the civil registration, birth registration, access to identity documentation, and citizenship through including the protection against statelessness as applied at the national level. On CRVS, the study focused on the access to civil registrations of foundlings, non-national and stateless persons residing in the countries. The research also collected challenges and good practices in the region, as well as share some good practice from other regions. And based on the inputs provided by each country and discussion at the national and regional consultation, and the research made recommendations to address the identified challenges. And among others, it also recommend on the CRVS that ASEAN member states should make use of the Bali process civil registration assessment toolkit to facilitate the formulation of plans and policy to perform the civil registration, including birth registration, how to read groups with the country, and make efforts to meet the target set by both ESCAP on CRVS by 2024 and by SDG on birth registration, and addressing the issues of statelessness in order to not leave anyone behind. And in parallel with all of that regional activities on the legal identity from ACWC, I think the government of Vietnam also have some good practice and lesson learned on the CRVS, where we passed in the enactment of the law on civil status in 2014. And the law features many breakthrough elements contributing to the inclusive civil registration and effective population management. The law strengthens CRVS system that include hard-to-reach and vulnerable groups and helps increase the levels of birth registration among at-risk groups to prevent the statelessness. And the law also stipulates the procedures of birth registration for all children born in Vietnam, including the abandonment of children whose parents are not national. And as we also conducting the administrative reforms of the work on birth registrations, the civil status registration and nationality. In 2014, the Prime Minister issued a decision on approving the scheme for the interlinkage of birth registration, permanent residence registration, and the granting of health insurance cards for children under 6 years of age. And this is a 3-in-1 implementation model to facilitate people to get all the service in one go. And previously, people had to visit their 3 different agencies to complete these procedures, but now they can also just come to one agency to complete all of these tasks. And thirdly, we also adopting the National Action Plan on civil registrations and vital statistics for 2017-2024, and the plannings to ensure that all Vietnamese citizens and hard-to-reach and vulnerable population groups will be included in the system and receive a birth registration and other required identification documents. And we also try to we also adopting the Prime Minister decisions on promote granting the plan on the implementations of the United Nations Global Compact for Safe, Orderly and Regular Migration in March 2020. And this is under this, the plan was issued to affirm the Vietnam's consistent policy on facilitating safe, orderly and regular migration through several measures that can also include, for example, so speeding up activities on civil registration of migrants, and especially the vulnerable groups at all stage, and ensuring the right to a nationality and civil registration of migrant children or children born to a Vietnamese and foreign national who reside in Vietnam and may fall into statelessness situation. And thirdly, to evaluate the current legislation relating to naturalization and civil registration on stateless people in Vietnam, And lastly is to expediting the process of assessing to the 1954 Convention relating to states of stateless person and 1961 Convention relating to the reduction of the statelessness. This measure significantly contribute to improving access to civil registration on the hard-to-reach and vulnerable population in the country. And also at this moment, we can also see so many other activities from other ASEAN member states. And the work of ACWC, the ongoing work towards the implementation of the recommendations of the study on legal identity that is led by Vietnam. That, for example, in Cambodia, the National Strategic Plan of Identification 2017-2026 is being implemented to include every person in the CRVS system. And to reinforce this effort, the ACWC national project in Cambodia has been developed to capacitate local civil registrars, especially the members of the Commune Council for Women and Children, who are in charge of civil registration and birth registration at the grassroots level. And in the Philippines, the ACWC national project is also being developed, and through training workshop, the project aims to strengthen the capacity of local civil registrars, particularly the barangay civil registration system, to facilitate the vulnerable groups access to birth registration and civil registration experiences and good practice of barangay officials in other areas will be also shared and discussed during the trainings. In Indonesia, the presidential regulation number 62 in 2019 on the national strategy to accelerate population administration for CRVS is being implemented to ensure birth registration for all in the country. And the ACWC national project will also be developed to strengthen the implementation of existing laws and this regulation, as well as to facilitate the discussion about good practices, lessons learned, as well as existing challenges on CRVS among national stakeholders through a workshop. So, ladies and gentlemen, I have concluded my sharing from the perspective of ACWC working on the legal identity, and we hope that Vietnam in particular and ACWC of ASEAN and all ASEAN member states can also work together in order to collaborate with you in all to share all of the progress that we are now working on that. Thank you much. Over to you.
Thank you very much for your presentation, and I'm really impressed about all the efforts and activities that have been undertaken. Now, I want to I stress that we are a little bit beyond schedule. We were supposed to finish this meeting 8 minutes ago, but I don't think that many of you will mind to have a quick follow-up of question and answers to the speakers and to all the other parties involved. So I would give the floor, and I would ask persons to put questions in the chat box for specific speakers. And I see already that a question has come from Nazaria. The question is to Vietnam, is that how can we access the Bali toolkit? This would be an important thing, maybe to share. I see that already has been shared the link with the Bali toolkit. I would invite person to type in the question to in the chat box, and then I will try to moderate the questions and answers. Who wants to start? I think the presentations were so interesting that there must have been a lot of points that you would like to raise.
Lucio, I think we got another question from Nazaria, and this one is to our guest speaker, Sharif Ihani from Indonesia, which is, what are your strategies to ensure those abroad and in rural areas are registered?
Yeah. Thank you, David. Thank you, Lucio. Thank you for the question from the Ibu Nazaria. Yeah, as I mentioned before in our slide, we have the 14 ministries that involved in our member of the national team. And the one member is Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Yeah, we are also agree that the people in abroad is important to register. So with the collaboration, coordination between Ministry of Home Affairs and Foreign Affairs, so we can accelerate to register the people abroad. And then the second one, what about in the rural area? Yeah, in the rural area, we have the we can say that the local government office. So we get together and we are very active to coordinate with the local government to search, to see the vulnerable people, to see their rural people in the rural area, that we can accelerate, we can help them to easier to register their birth, to register their identity and other vital event. I think that's my answer. Thank you.
Thank you very much. While we're waiting for other questions, I would have a question for Abdul Rahim. Like, you know, I was impressed by your presentation and the point, like, you know, that the children and youth engagement is critical. I would like to pick a little bit your brain on what kind of activities and strategies you would envisage from children and youth directly to support, especially in the information campaign, in the sharing of information on civic registration vital statistics. Because I believe that, yes, there is a great role of state authorities, of the duty bearers to listen to you and to undertake actions. But how would you see, like, you know, children and youth taking directly the stage, especially with peer-to-peer, with the horizontal transfer of knowledge and communication in order to improve the CRVS? Would you be able to give some of your ideas on what can be done specifically?
Yes. Okay, so thank you for that question. First of all, I am Abdul Rahim Anadin again. So the question of Mr. Lucia is, what are the strategies to do? Am I right? Okay,
yes,
so,
the strategies that children and youth can undertake directly. Yes.
Yes. So for me, I do believe that this consultation or conducting a consultation is one of the platforms to do to engage and to hear other youth just like me, to give to have their suggestions and their recommendations, and to know if what are the struggles that they are facing right now. And then also we can also have a online, just like the online platform. So we can disseminate information just like the posting on your page. So you will just post some information about CRVS or anything that could help the youth, in broadening their suggestions or their thoughts about the said topic. So did I get your did I get
You certainly did. You certainly did. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Are there any more questions to any of the speakers or any other issues that you would like to have raised? I think we have some persons that did not mute the phone, probably. Okay, well, if there is no other question, I would really like to thank you all, and the speakers especially, and actually we even exceeded the time. Then I would like to stress that if you want more information, I really strongly recommend and encourage to read the full report, get everyone in the picture. And then if you even want to find more information about CRVS in Asia and the Pacific, the report is available in the link shown on the screen. And I also would like to invite you to look at the website, like, you know, of get everyone in the picture, get in the picture, because it's like it's full of information and details, and then from there you can start also your research. So the other thing is that the other upcoming activity is that the Ministerial Conference, the second Ministerial Conference on CRVS in Asia and the Pacific, that will take place online in Bangkok between the 15th and 19th of November 2021. That is going to be a very interesting milestone. But I guess most of us will be there again to really consult and discuss with the state authorities on where we are and what needs to be done still in order to get everyone in the picture and to leave no one behind. I would really like to conclude on the leaving no one behind note, because it is not only a metaphor, but is exactly what we are trying to achieve with civic registration and vital statistics. So unless there is any other intervention, I would really like to thank you all for the participation this morning, this afternoon, or this evening, according to your time zone, and wish you a pleasant rest of the day. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.